Attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Tracy Fitzpatrick, and I'll be your moderator today. Thank you so much for joining us here at NetCom Learning, a market leader in promoting lifelong learning, training, and talent development solutions. We're very excited to host today's technical webinar, CompTIA IT Continuing Education, What You Need to Know. And presenting today's topic is Jerry Ann Roberts. Jerry Ann is an adjunct professor at Valencia College, an information technology trainer at NICOMP International, and IT contractor at PCM. She's currently seeking a PhD of Information Assurance and Security from Capella University. She's also a certified in CompTIA, A+ Network Security, Microsoft, MCP, MCTS in web and desktop applications. Now, please bear in mind that this is a an overview of a very robust topic, and we do offer a collection of technical and business courses that can be tailored towards your specific requirements. If you are interested in further discussion, you can make an appointment with our learning consultants through our website at netcomlearning.com. Today's session is also being recorded, so you will get free access to the recording in the next 24 hours via email. NetCom Learning is an award-winning global leader in managed learning services, training, and talent development. We offer over 2,000 IT, business, and soft skills courses available to organizations around the world, encompassing all your technology and business training needs. NetCom Learning is the most trusted name in both business and IT training and offers top-notch instructors and vendor-approved coursework, offering certification preparation for a variety of vendor certifications. So why should you attend this webinar? Technology offers a great career opportunity, but the dynamics of IT require you to stay current with your skills and certifications. Get started by understanding why keeping your certification current helps to ensure longevity in your IT career. And now I'll just give you a quick overview of the logistics before we get started. To start with, you do have the option to adjust the window size to your liking. Simply hit the Escape key and find the Zoom button on the top left corner of your GoToWebinar viewer. Everyone has been muted except for our presenters. Please feel free to submit any questions that you do have for the presenters here in the questions pane, and we will address them at the end of the session. A PDF copy of today's slides are also in the handout section of your GoToWebinar viewer. Now, in just a few moments, I'm going to pass this off to Jerry Ann, who will be presenting today's topic. Jerry Ann, go ahead, you're live.
Thank you, Tracy. Good afternoon, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about CompTIA and continuing education. So what we're going to talk about is, first we're going to discuss what actually continuing education is, so we get a better idea of what it is and why we need it. Then we're going to discuss CompTIA's requirements for education and what they're looking for as far as continuing education. We're also going to look at what items might qualify as continuing education for those requirements put forth by CompTIA. So first of all, what exactly is continuing education? Well, continuing education, it's also referred to as continuing education units or continuing professional education, is pretty much the process of learning new skills and updating skills related to your field. Once you've completed a degree or a certification, your learning's not done. So we go through continuing education to update those skills and learn new things. Now, CompTIA does require that certified professionals under the CompTIA program complete these kinds of credits to keep certifications current. Now, the certifications will expire after 3 years if continuing education is not completed. This is actually relatively newer for CompTIA. They started requiring this process in 2010. Before that, certifications were what was called GFL, or Good for Life. Nowadays, these certifications expire after that 3-year period unless you've completed your continuing education. Now, you can actually log into CompTIA's website /CompTIA/login.aspx and view your certifications and see if they do need to be updated via the continuing education program, or if they're good for life. It will actually say their GFL if it is a good for life. So with CompTIA, there are some requirements as far as the continuing education goes. Now, not all of these certifications under the CompTIA program are going to be required to have continuing education, so it's important to double check. Currently, the certifications that require your continuing education are going to be your A+, your Security+, your Network+, your Cloud+, and 2 of the newer ones, your Cybersecurity Analyst Plus and your CompTIA Advanced Security Practitioner, or the CASP. These certifications do require continuing education. Now, this may change. They're looking to possibly do some of their other ones, like their Linux Plus and stuff like that. So definitely double check the CompTIA website on a regular basis just to make sure that you know what is required. Now, what are the actual requirements from CompTIA for your continuing education? There are a couple things here. First, you need to know what your renewal cycle is. When it comes to the renewal cycle, that's going to be that 3-year expiration. So you must do those continuing education credits within that 3-year expiration. So say, for example, you did your certification today, which is July 20th, 2017. You would have to finish all of your renewal credits before July 20th of 2020. So it has to be before the 3-year anniversary date, otherwise the certification will expire, and you will most likely have to just retake the certification with the new exam that's available at that time. As far as renewal goes, there are also fees. These fees depend on the certification you are trying to renew. If you have multiple certifications, the fee for the highest earned certification applies. So, for example, if you had your A+, your Network+, your Security+, the only fee that would apply would be the fee for the Security+. Now, there is a caveat to that, and we'll talk about that later. There are some activities that actually allow you to waive that fee. Now, as far as the continuing education, you have what are called CEUs. Those are continuing education units. They're pretty much credits towards the overall continuing education requirement. These are items that count as CEUs, must be completed. Now, each certification is different. Each one has a different amount of continuing education credits that need to actually be done, and we'll look at that in a second here. Just be cognizant of that as well when you're thinking about your continuing education. Same thing here applies as the fee. The highest certification is going to be the one you look at for the number of continuing education credits you are required. Now, there are some activities that do allow you to complete all of your continuing education units at once, and we will talk about those too. First of all, let's talk a little bit more about the renewal cycle. This is extremely important that you make sure you know what your renewal date is, because if you do not meet before the 3-year anniversary, you're not going to be able to actually update that certification. You're going to have to go retake it, and that could be a lot more expensive and more time consuming. So it's better to make sure you know what's going on. Another example here, say if you completed your A+ on March 13th of 2017, you would have to do all those credits and your fees before March 13th of 2020. So If you were to do it on that day, it would not count. It has to be before that day. So it'd have to be March 12th as your last day there. Now, CompTIA, of course, recommends that you complete this as soon as possible. We all know that life gets in the way of our certifications and things that we want to do, so doing it as soon as possible. Make sure that you don't run out of time. 3 years may seem like a lot of time, but that does come up on you pretty quick, especially when we're talking about certifications. So make sure that you do that as quick as possible. Of course, if you don't, then your certification will not renew. You will expire, and you'll have to retake. Now the fees. Fees are going to be based off the highest certification gained. So if you do have multiple, it will be just the one that's considered the highest. So for example, if you have A+ and Security+, the fees would be based off the Security+, which if you look over here, you can see that that would be $150 for all 3 years. Or each year you can pay $50. Now CompTIA does allow you to separate those fees, so you can pay $50 a year for those 3 years instead of just paying $150 at once. So you do have some options as far as fees go and what you're allowed to pay. Now, these are based off your renewal cycle. So if you get your A+ on March 13th, your first year's fee would be due by March 13th of 2018. Or you can pay all 3 years at once. Again, they kind of have some flexibility there, so you can do what you would like to do as far as fees go. Now, here's kind of another caveat with that. You cannot enter your continuing education units into the system until your dues are up to date. So say, for example, that I just got my certification last month, and I'm going to go do a class, and I'm going to get some credits for that class. Well, I haven't paid my fee yet. Well, I can't enter those credits into the system. They won't let you. So you need to make sure that you are up to date on your fees before you can actually put your credits in the system. Now, here's another thing. Fees can be waived. So instead of having to pay for the full 3 years, you can actually get them waived. A couple ways to do that. If you pass the latest version of the exam. So say, for example, you know, a couple years ago you took the 801 and 802 for the A+. You decide, you know what, I want to do the current one. I'm going to do 901 and 902. If you were to do that, your fees would be waived for the continuing education. And in that case, since it is also a latest version of the exam, that would actually count towards all your credits too. And we actually will talk about that. Some things actually count for full credit. If you pass a recertification exam, that also will waive all your fees. If you earn a higher level CompTIA certification, so say, for example, you have your A+ and you decide you're going to do your Net Plus. Well, when you do the Net Plus, that's going to renew your A+, but it's also going to waive that fee for your A+ there. There's also a continuing education program that they have where you can actually go and take classes. It's called the CompTIA CertMaster CE, or the CompTIA CE program. CE being, of course, continuing education. And they have some classes in there that you can register for and take through CompTIA, and that can waive some of your fees as far as continuing education goes. Now, actual continuing education units. Now, to satisfy the credit requirement, you must meet the number of continuing education units required for your highest certification. So here we see the different certifications and their credit requirements. Each one in the list is higher than the one before. So say, for example, you had your A+, your Network Plus, and say your Cloud Plus. If you look at the list, your Cloud Plus is going to be considered a higher certification than the other two. So you would need to meet that 50 credit for the Cloud Plus in order to get your credit requirement. So you don't have to meet all of these credits, just the one for the highest certification. Now, there are many different things you can do to earn continuing education units, but one thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you're meeting that number. It would be, pretty bad if you had to have 50 and you hit maybe 49 at that 3-year mark. You still wouldn't be able to renew. So you have to make sure that you hit that number. Now, we're going to talk now about what actually qualifies as continuing education, what kind of things you can do to get those credits, and how those credits are actually recorded. So there are a couple different things when it comes to continuing education and renewal. You have single activity renewal. We talked about that earlier, how some certifications and the Cert Master CE program, those will actually allow you to do a full renewal instead of just some credits towards the whole thing. So you can do a higher certification or a recertification. Those things not only will waive that fee, but they will give you full credit. In that case, you only need to do one thing, and your item is going to be considered fully credited as far as the continuing education goes. There's also multiple activity renewals. Now these are going to be things like online classes, getting certifications from other vendors such as like a Microsoft or a Cisco certification, training, things like that. Those are only partial points. They're not full points, but they will allow you to get enough points to get your full renewal. Now, single activity renewal. So professionals can renew with a single activity. This allows you to do one thing. You can earn all your points, and depending on what it is, you might also be able to get your credit, your actual fees waived, so that way you don't have to pay into the actual renewal. So let's discuss those a little bit. The first one is that CompTIA Cert Master CE. That's that e-learning platform, allows you to take all sorts of classes, update your skills. There's A+ classes, Network Plus classes. There's some other classes that aren't certification related. They're just general classes, things like that. So CompTIA has that. CompTIA also has recertifications. Some of the recertification exams will count for full credit. That's one of those ones where you'll actually have to look it up on the website, because every recertification exam is different. Some of them do, some of them don't. If it's the same exam, like say you're taking a recertification for A+, it will most likely count. If you get a higher level CompTIA certification, this one's actually really cool because you get your fee waived, and you get another certification, and you get all your credits needed for renewal. So you kind of kill a bunch of birds with one stone with that one. They will allow you to do any of the higher levels. So if we look at our previous ones here, say you had your Network Plus, if you did any of these, security, cloud, CSA, CASP, any of them, those would count for your continuing education credits as far as doing your full renewal. So that's pretty cool too. And again, that's kind of nice because you get another certification out of it too. Non-CompTIA IT industry certifications. Now, some non-CompTIA certifications count for full credit. So if you got, say, your CISP, you would actually get everything you needed for your Security Plus continuing education requirements. Now, in that case, you would still have to pay your fees because it's not a CompTIA certification. but all your credits would be taken care of. So the only thing in that case would be is that you would have to worry about the fees, but the credits would be good. They also allow a bunch of Microsoft certifications. They allow Juniper. They allow Cisco. They allow Brocade. They allow NetApp. They actually allow quite a bit. There's a huge list on the website of vendors that you can actually go through and see who they allow and what kind of certifications they are and what kind of credits you can get for each thing. And again, with that, the CompTIA certification exam, again, if you got a newer version of your certification, like I said in the example before, if you had the 801 and 802A plus and you went and got the 901 and 902A plus, that would count, and that one would also count for fees because it is a CompTIA exam. Multiple activity renewal. This path is a little more difficult because you need to do multiple things to get all of your credits, but it might be beneficial in that when you do it this way, you can break it up a little bit more, so you don't have to do everything at once. Some of these continuing education units are not going to be full credit. They're going to be partial credit. For example, if you were to complete a training course, some of those credits might only be a couple of credits, like 2 or 3. With the training courses, it's 1 continuing education unit for each hour of training. So if you did 20 hours of training in a course for a week, you would get 20 credits towards your overall credit requirement. Some of the activities that you can do, a CompTIA certification, a lower certification can count for partial credit. So if you're trying to update your Security Plus, you didn't have your Network Plus yet, and you went and took your Network Plus, that would give you partial credit towards that Security Plus. That's definitely something you can do, and it's definitely nice because you also get another certification out of it. Non-CompTIA IT industry certifications. These again are like Microsoft or Juniper or Cisco or any of these. These other vendors count for partial credit. For example, the MCASA and Server 2012, so the Microsoft Certified Solutions Associate and Server 2012 counts for 8 points towards the Security Plus. Now the Security Plus needs 50 points in total, so obviously you would have to do some other things to get your overall points, but you get 8 towards the overall requirement there by doing another certification from another vendor. Training and higher education. So we talked a little bit about training, higher education as well. So say, for example, your work's requiring you to go back and get a bachelor's in IT. If you go there and one of your classes covers at least 50% of the requirements for the certification, so 50% of the different things that are covered on the certification, you can get points for that. And that's kind of similar there. As far as training goes, usually 1 continuing education unit per hour. So if that class is like 3 hours a week and it's only a 4-week class or something like that, that would be 12 units. Now the couple other ones that they have are a little bit more difficult because they're a little bit more murky. They're not as straightforward. So IT industry participation. Now that can mean a couple different things. The way CompTIA sees it is participation in a conference. So say, for example, you went to ChannelCon, which is CompTIA's conference that they have every year. That would actually count for points towards your CEU credits. Or the interesting one they have here is you can serve as a CompTIA subject matter expert and earn points towards your requirement. So that's pretty neat, in that you can actually serve as a subject matter expert, and what they actually do is they help CompTIA put together their exams and figure out what kind of requirements they want on the exams as far as topics and things like that. So that's pretty cool. Subject matter experts also, if you do that, they get first dibs on some of the beta exams for CompTIA, as well as some deep discounts on CompTIA certifications. So that's kind of a neat thing that you can look at doing too. And that will give you some points towards your requirement. But those points are going to depend on what you're actually doing as a subject matter expert. Subject matter experts, again, they work on exams and things like that, but sometimes they're only working a couple hours here and there, so they don't get as many points. Another thing is publishing. When you're working in IT, sometimes you do publish white papers and books, or if you have a blog that you're responsible for, these things can count towards credits. So as far as that goes, it's going to depend on what you're doing. So if you published a white paper, they're going to look at that and they're going to say, okay, does this have to do with what the actual exam that you're renewing has on it, or is it something unrelated? If it's unrelated, they're not going to give you any credit. But if you published a white paper and it had to do with something that was covered on the exam, you can earn some points there. You can also earn some points from work experience. Now, work experience could be different things. That could be, say, for example, you did a project where you went and did a refresh for a hospital with all their computers and everything like that. That might count for points towards your A+. So it depends on the type of project, and also depends on how long the project is. Or if it's not a project, if it's just your regular job, what they say is that the work that you perform must relate to one or more of the exam objectives for the certification you're renewing. So say, for example, with the A+, one of the objectives on there is hardware. So if you're working with hardware, that could count for points as far as that goes. Now, again, the points are going to depend on what it actually is. And again, that's where it gets kind of confusing. So, for example, with the work experience, if you have some hours of work experience, you can accumulate some points. However, with some of these, there are caps. You're not allowed to earn the full amount of credits. So with work experience, you can earn up to 9 continuing education units for your actual overall credits. Publishing, that's a little bit different too. It depends on the certification, but if you publish like an article or a white paper, you can get up to 8 continuing education units for your A+, up to 12 for network, up to 16 for the security and cloud, up to 18 for the CSA+, and then up to 20 for the CASP. So again, it depends on the certification and what you're actually doing, and there are caps. So say, for example, you were doing your Security Plus, that's going to be 50 points you need in total. If you did an article or white paper, you can get up to 16 of that. So you would still have to do a couple other things to get your total of 50 points. Now, as far as IT industry participation goes, there are some caps there, but there are a couple other activities that go into that kind of do help you as far as getting points. If you are a teacher or a trainer and you teach or train a course, you can actually get some points there. Now, again, there are caps. For example, with A+, you can only get 10 points towards your overall, but that's still 10 points you're going to get towards finishing if you trained or taught a course. Now, if you're like an instructional designer and you create materials for a course, you can get points as well. It's pretty similar to the points that you would get for teaching a course. Then there's that CompTIA SME, which is a subject matter expert. That also counts for credits. Those do have caps. However, those caps are usually the amount of points that you need. So you can get full credit with the subject matter expert as long as you're doing enough activities for that to earn the full amount. The way that that works is that you would attend a workshop for the subject matter expert, and you would get 1 point for each workshop hour that you had. So training, higher education. This one is a little different because there are a lot more activities you can do. If you complete a training course, you can actually earn up to the amount that you need. You can actually also do webinars. If you attend a live webinar, you can get points towards your certification, but there's a small cap for that. It's about 4 for A+, 6 for Network Plus, 10 for Security Plus, 10 for Cloud Plus, 15 for CSA Plus, and 20 for CASP. So a webinar, if it covered half of the objectives on the exam, then you would get points for doing that. Conferences, again, you could do those. College courses. The one that we haven't talked about is something called the American Council on Education, or ACE. They have some courses as well. The thing with the ACE is you can actually get a lot more credits for that. Now, as far as your credits go, when you're submitting credits, there's a couple different things that you need. You need the name, so your name, of course, because it's your certification. You need the name of the activity you did. So if it's a webinar, you would give the name of the webinar, who did it, the date of it, and the hours. If it was a conference, it'd be your name, the name of the conference, the date, number of hours. So it's pretty similar what you would put in there. All right, so one of the other ones, the non-CompTIA IT industry certifications. One of the things with that is that there are a ton of vendors that you could do certifications for, like a ton. So you would want to go on CompTIA's website, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute here, and look up which ones are available. They have a huge list for each certification, which non-CompTIA vendors you can go for. So some of those, again, will count for partial credit. The thing with the non-CompTIA IT industry certifications, there's no real cap on that. You're able to get full with that. So you can actually get multiple certifications from other vendors and still fulfill your full requirements, because there is, like I said, no cap. And then, of course, with the actual CompTIA certifications, you can get higher or lower, and you can get credit. If you get a lower, of course, it's just going to be partial credit. So getting more information. Obviously, we can only do so much in our live webinar as far as giving you information. CompTIA's website actually does have quite a bit more information that you can get regarding the certifications. So if you go to their site, it's going to be certification continuing education. And you can see here what it kind of looks like when you get to that page. If you go there, you can look up almost anything you need to know about the continuing education program. There is information about the renewal process, what your requirements are, what you need to do. We pretty much went over a lot of the requirements, but there's more information on each requirement in there. There's also information about fees and how you can break up your fees and how you can pay for them. There's more information on how to enter your actual credits. And then from there, you can also go to the continuing education site where you can pay your fees and enter your credits. And then it can tell you what credits you need. And in fact, if you log in, it'll tell you how much credits you need and what kind of fees you need to pay. Again, that's all varying on what you do. So you'll want to look up items just to make sure that you know what it's going towards and how much points you're going to get and things like that. So let me go ahead and I will bring up the site for you. Okay, so if you go to the CompTIA website, you'll see you go to a landing page and it has some basic areas you can go to, such as learning about the renewal process. This area will have information on what credits are required, things like that. So if you go in there, you'll see how to renew, what your fees are, what units you'll need, how to renew multiple certifications. Again, when you're renewing multiple certifications, typically you just renew the highest level and then it'll renew your other ones under it. Now, one thing we didn't talk about, but is kind of important, if you are a Department of Defense employee, there are different requirements. They do have lists of information on there for you if you are a Department of Defense employee, but your best bet is, if you work for the DoD, to talk to your manager or your training coordinator. Because those requirements do change. Of course, as we know with the government, things change on a daily basis. So if you are one of those employees, you would want to double check. If you're somebody wanting to apply to the Department of Defense as a future employee, that's also something you would want to look at because DoD does require certain certifications for certain job titles. And that information is in there if you'd like to look at it. They also have information here on renewal. So if you say you decided, I only want to do one thing, I don't want to have to worry about all those extra like training courses and all this stuff, you can go to the single activity. And it'll give you information on the different ways you can do that. Again, single activity could be their Cert Master, which is their learning, a recertification, a higher level certification. Some non-CompTIA IT industry certifications count for full credit. And then, of course, if you were to take a newer version of your exam, it would give you full credit. Now, if you were to go in here, it would give you more information on how to do that and how you would actually enter that so you can get your credit. And then if you wanted to do multiple, same thing, you can go in here and you can look at the information. Now, one of the things that is nice in here is you can actually go to each one and it has different lists. For example, non-CompTIA does have a list of certifications, and you can go in here and you click on the certification you want to renew, say Security Plus. and it'll load a page with the list for you, show you what certifications you can get. And as you can see, there's a lot. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hand it back to Tracy if we have any questions.
And we do want to remind all our attendees out there that there is a special promotion for the recommended courses for this webinar. You can enroll yourself for the courses mentioned on your screen and get an additional 15% off for savings. And this offer is valid until August 4th of 2017. We are going to be launching a quick poll to find out how many of you might be interested in taking some additional training. So please take a few seconds out of your time before you log off to fill out this poll so we can stay on top of what courses and training that we can offer you in the future. In addition, we have a lot more informative webinars coming up, so please go to netcomlearning.com/webinars in order to register. And don't forget to like and follow us on our social media pages to get the latest technology updates. You can refer to the GoToWebinar chat window for our links. And Jerry Ann, just want to ask any final thoughts before we end today's session?
Just a couple things. Guys, remember that your certifications obviously are important, so you want to keep them up to date. It's not just CompTIA. I mean, we did talk about CompTIA today that is doing this. Cisco has been starting to implement some continuing education. I'm not sure on their requirements yet because they are still in the process of doing it, but that is something to look for. Microsoft is also talking about doing a similar program. So when you're doing your certifications, just be cognizant that some of these are going to start requiring renewals. It's kind of new for some people because the certifications used to be good for life and now they are changing. So just be cognizant of that, guys, when you're out there doing your certifications.
Great. Thank you so much, Jerry Ann, and thank you all for joining us today. And if you do come up with any additional questions, feel free to send them to webinar@netcomlearning.com at any time. We hope that you found today's webinar informative, and we look forward to seeing you back here with us soon. Feel free to tell your friends and colleagues about our webinars and other courses. Have a great day, everyone.